The life of a 19th century mudlark was brutal, and their living conditions wretched. If you watched my video on the mudlarks of Victorian London, you will have discovered just how dreadful this job could be. For the paltry amount of money you could earn from selling scavenged items was frequently insufficient to feed oneself, let alone outweigh the risks to health from submerged nails or glass that could injure and reduce the potential to earn any income at all. So, mudlarks took any opportunity they could to supplement their earnings, either with honest jobbing work or by more unscrupulous means, such as plundering coal or iron from vessels. It's perhaps hardly surprising that children living a marginal existence on London's mean streets could find themselves in a gang of fellow gutter snipes that offered protection and mutual assistance in obtaining food, by whatever dishonest method, so that you could at least wake up knowing you would have a chance to eat that day. Henry Mayhew was a Victorian journalist who concerned himself with the state of working people in London, and in my previous video, you will have heard his interview with a 14-year-old mudlark who scavenged the shores of the River Thames with 20 to 30 other boys in an attempt to find enough coals to sell so as to provide food for his widowed mother and sisters. In this video, you will hear Mayhew recount the boy's tale of how he fell in with a gang of thieves and how the same journalist saved him from a life of crime. Before we start, please consider clicking the subscribe button in the bottom right of your screen for more content like this. If you find this video interesting, I would really appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up and share it widely with friends and family. These two things really do show your support and help the channel grow so I can bring you more. Thank you. Check out the description for links to more interesting videos about the Victorians, and take a look at the channel page for even more content. The lad of whom I speak was discovered by me now nearly 2 years ago, mudlarking on the banks of the river near the docks. He was a quick, intelligent little fellow, and had been at the business, he told me, about 3 years. He had taken to mudlarking, he said, because his clothes were too bad for him to look for anything better. He worked every day with 20 or 30 boys, who might all be seen at daybreak with their trousers tucked up, groping about and picking out the pieces of coal from the mud on the banks of the Thames. One evening, as he was warming his feet in the water that ran from a steam factory, he heard some boys talking about the ragged school in High Street, Wapping.
"They were saying what they used to learn there,"
said the boy.
"They asked me to come along with them, for it was great fun. They told me all the boys used to be laughing and making game of the master. They said they used to put out the gas and chuck the slates about. They told me, too, that there was a good fire there, so I went to have a warm and see what it was like. When I got there, the master was very kind to me. They used to give us tea parties, and to keep us quiet, they used to show us the magic lantern. I soon got to like going there, and went every night for 6 months. There was about 40 or 50 boys in the school. The most of them was thieves, and they used to go thieving the coals out of barges along shore, and cutting the ropes off ships, and going and selling it at the rag shops. They used to get 3/4 of a pence a pound for the rope when dry, and half a pence when wet. Some used to steal pudding out of the shops and hand it to those outside, and the last boy it was handed to would go off with it. They used to steal bacon and bread sometimes as well. About half the boys at the school was thieves. Some had work to do at ironmongers, lead factories, engineers, soap boilers, and so on, and some had no work to do and was good boys still. After we came out of school at 9 o'clock at night, some of the bad boys would go a-thieving. Perhaps a half a dozen, and from that to 8 would go out in a gang together. There was one big boy, he was about 18 years old, and is in prison now for stealing bacon. I think he is in the House of Correction. Oh, this boy used to go out of school before any of us, and wait outside the door as the other boys came out. Then he would call the boys he wanted for his gangs on one side, and tell them where to go and steal. He used to look out in the daytime for shops where things could be prigged. and at night he would tell the boys to go to them. He was called the captain of the gangs. He had about 3 gangs all together with him, and there were from 6 to 8 boys in each gang. The boys used to bring what they stole to the captain, and he used to share it with them. I belonged to one of the gangs. There were 6 boys all together in my gang. The biggest lad, that knowed all about the thieving, was the captain of the gang I was in, and there was a captain over him and over all of us. Oh, there were 2 brothers of them. You see them, sir, the night you first met me. The other boys, as was in my gang, was by the name BB and BL and WB, and a boy we used to call Tim. These, with myself, used to make up one of the gangs, and we all of us used to go a-thieving every night after school hours. When the tide would be right up, and we had nothing to do along shore, we used to go thieving in the daytime as well. It was BB and BL as first put me up to go thieving. They took me with them one night up the lane.
New Gravel Lane.
And I see them take some bread out of a baker's, and they wasn't found out. And after that, I used to go with them regular. Then I joined C's gang, and after that C came and told us that his gang could do better than ours, and he asked us to join our gang to his, and we did so. Sometimes we used to make 3 shillings or 4 shillings a day, or about 6 pence apiece. While waiting outside the school doors before they opened, we used to plan up where we would go thieving after school was over. I was taken up once for thieving coals myself, but I was let go again.
I was so struck with the boy's truthfulness of manner that I asked him would he really lead a different life if he saw a means of doing so. He assured me he would, and begged me earnestly to try him. Upon his leaving me, 2 shillings were given for his trouble. This small sum, I afterwards learned, kept the family for more than a fortnight. The girl laid it out in sprats, it being the winter time. These she sold in the streets. I mentioned the fact to a literary friend who interested himself in the boy's welfare and eventually succeeded in procuring him a situation at an eminent printer's. The subjoined letter will show how the lad conducted himself while there. White Friars, April 22nd, 1850. Messrs. Bradbury and Evans beg to say that the boy J.C. has conducted himself in a very satisfactory manner since he has been in their employment. The same literary friend took the girl into his service. She is in a situation still, though not in the same family. The boy now holds a good situation at one of the daily newspaper offices. So well has he behaved himself that, a few weeks since, his wages were increased from 6 shillings to 9 shillings per week. His mother, owing to the boy's exertions, has now a little shop and is doing well. This simple story requires no comments, and is narrated here in the hope that it may teach many to know how often the poor boys reared in the gutter are thieves, merely because society forbids them being honest lads.